This is the Heart of Frederick podcast. I'm Sarah Hurwitz Robey, and I'm here with Kara Norman, the Executive Director of the Downtown Frederick Partnership. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So you have been with the Downtown Frederick Partnership as the Executive Director since October of 2002.
Yep.
And it's about when I started in this business, and I can personally say how much I've seen downtown just blossom under your leadership. And I just have so much respect for you and all that you've done. The partnership's a huge undertaking. So that's amazing.
Well, thank you.
So, yes, thank you. So can you tell me a little bit about the Downtown Frederick Partnership, what the evolution has happened and how it started?
Yeah. So the organization's been around since 1990. No, I haven't been there the whole time. For those of you who aren't as good as math. And it was started really by community activism. So there have been some precursor organizations that did a variety of things that were community-led. And for whatever reason, this one stuck. At that time, the organization was called the Greater Frederick Development Corporation, or GFDC, which if you're newer to Frederick, that means nothing to you at this point, but that was the name of the organization at that time. And it was focused on downtown, but at a certain point, it became the Economic Development Department effectively for the city of Frederick. And so their focus was not just downtown, but economic development citywide. And prior to my getting here, this is all things I'm learning from others. I will admit from the early years, I inherited like a box. So I don't have great information. It's from other sources in the community who gave me that information. But I came to Frederick, as we mentioned, in 2002. It was after a mayoral election, and Jennifer Doherty won that election. And she had campaigned on a promise to move that department into City Hall. She didn't want it to be a separate nonprofit. And so when I came in, the organization had lost a significant amount of funding. They went from about $300,000 in city support to $30,000. And the staff had moved. There were two staff at the time, and they'd moved to become part of the city. Richard Griffin, who many of us know here in Frederick, moved from being with what at that time was GFDC to the city, which made a lot of sense because it was a strong going concern and he could do economic development for the city as a whole. And then I was hired and I had some of this information, but not all of it when I arrived in Frederick in October.
So where did you move from?
I moved here from San Antonio. I was working for the city of San Antonio as a neighborhood planner. And I was thinking about, there were some issues in the government there and support for planning and things like that, some complications. And so I was thinking about where else I was going to go. And I happened to bump into a gentleman from Frederick, Bernie Callen, who was a local historic preservationist. And he checked me out and told me about the job here. And I applied, and he was a great supporter and giving me some information about Frederick before I got here.
What did you think the first time you came to Frederick? What were your impressions of Frederick back then? It's very different.
Yeah.
Especially 1990 and then to where you came and to now.
Yeah. And actually, so the funny thing is, before I met Bernie, I'd actually just strangely made a trip here. I was living in San Antonio. And for those of you who aren't from San Antonio, you know, it's hot and there are no seasons. And I'm an Iowa girl. And so I was really, really missing fall. And so I met my mom. We both flew to Dulles, met at the airport. She was coming from Iowa. I was coming from Texas. Got in the car, and this is where we stretched our legs on our way we were going out to Keedysville for a photo shoot. And so I had seen Frederick and thought, wow, this is this is a town. I could tell people were working, that things were happening. I'm an urban planner by training, so I sort of have always been watching cities and how they work. And so it was just a fluke that this is where we got out of the car to stretch our legs, and I saw it. Then I bumped into Bernie, months later in San Antonio, and he said, well, we've got this job. And I was like, oh, that was a pretty cool town. So I applied. And it was just such a great experience being here for that really the second time, but re-engaging. It was the fall season. It must have been an election year because all these people were asking me if I voted. Which I thought was really a great indication of what I love about Frederick is people are involved and they're committed and they're part of it. And they're not just sitting back and saying, oh, someone else. They're really involved. And so that taste really attracted me to Frederick.
At that point was the position for the executive director of the Downtown Frederick Partnership. So at that point, the partnership was its own entity.
Oh, at that point it was its own entity, but it was still called Greater Frederick Development Corporation, or GFDC. I had been in the role once I was hired and got here. I was in the role for not very long. Before I was like, no one understands what these words mean. And it was really kind of challenging. And people, what's your development project? And so we went through a whole process and decided to call ourselves Downtown Frederick Partnership. So that was after I was here. But, lost most of our funding and went to one staff person. But yeah, it was the executive director role. I laughingly say I have the same job title, but I do nothing I did on the first day.
He is so changed. One thing you told me, and I think this is really important, the mission is not changed. But what is the mission of the Dutch?
Yeah. So we work to enhance, promote, and preserve the vitality, livability, and diversity of downtown Frederick by implementing the Main Street program. And that Main Street program has been at the base. The group prior to my getting here was able to get Downtown Frederick Partnership listed or named as a Main Street organization. And that's how we organize our work. And for those who aren't familiar with Main Street, they're very interested in historic preservation. It originally came out of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They wanted old buildings to be taken care of. If you live there, you work there, you play there. In general, that old building is better taken care of than if nothing's happening, right? So they created this comprehensive, incremental, community-driven model for how to do preservation-based economic development. And that's what we've followed in my entire tenure here in Frederick, is that kind of basic model about building from who you are and the strengths you already have, having the community really involved in that process, and really thinking comprehensively. Many people know us for events, and events are fantastic, but they can't be the whole puzzle. There's got to be more behind it. So that's what that comprehensive.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
When you talk about the vitality, I always think that's what makes downtown so special. Is it's not just restaurants and retail. It's the law offices and the courthouse and all the professional services and the banks and the therapists and everybody who is working here and part of the community, not just coming for the weekend for the events.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a real place. And I think that's probably the most special thing about Frederick is that I've traveled, and when you go to other places, you can just feel the difference between these are people who live here, who are moving around me and are participating in it. And in general, I love those communities, and the communities where it feels like it's just tourists. Not so much. It just doesn't have that same appeal. You really know when it's a real place.
There's so much more investment by everybody when it's a real place.
Yeah,
absolutely. You're a group of jewelers, and we traveled to each other's stores, and when they came to it, we were the only ones in a downtown anymore.
Sure.
Being in downtowns, and then as people left downtown, and when they all came here, they were like, "This place is just special." Like it was. We stayed in Airbnbs and had a walkable meeting, and everyone was just thinking, this is nothing like this in our towns around the country. So
yeah,
it's really,
we're lucky, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, with you on that.
Yeah.
So how has your role changed from 2002 to now?
The work we do,
Your role in the partnership.
Yeah, I mean, the work we do has changed in such a big degree. When I first got here, I can still remember Dancing Bear and Tom just celebrated their 25-year anniversary. And so we were reminiscing recently. And he and April were so critical, April Reardon, in getting First Saturday started. And so when I got here, they were doing this first event that I just sort of showed up and helped them, implement it. I had no role in the planning, but eventually that became First Saturday. So things that have been started in the time, we went from First Saturday, and now we have Alive at 5 and all, Halloween and all the Frosty Friday and all these other events and activities. We have a Downtown Frederick gift card. So you can buy one card and give a gift that can be spent at 100+ places, which is really incredible and hard to do in a small retail environment. We have trainings where, our small businesses are small, and you have an advantage of being a part of a professional association, and some have that, some don't. But to get more knowledge about how to be a better business person is really important to be successful. We have grant programs to improve the inside of your building, to improve the outside of your building, to add fire suppression, which is really critically important. We're taking on bigger and bigger projects as an organization. So hopefully 7th Street Fountain Park will be renovated in 2026. And that's a nice end cap to our downtown, and it should be a beautiful space. We're working towards a new food hall. With any luck, we'll get a grant and we'll be able to do a retail incubator. So the complexity and the challenges we've taken on have grown over that tenure. And we've tried to reflect what's happening in downtown Frederick and how it's shifted. When I first got here, the biggest complaint was hobby businesses. People always talked about hobby businesses. Do you remember that? And so, yeah, and people would be like, oh, and I mean, at first I was like, what are we talking about? What's a hobby business? And then I was like, okay, I get it. People who are, it's theoretically a fun thing that they do on the weekends to have this retail business, but the hours were inconsistent. It wasn't people, this is people's line of work. This is how they live and succeed. And it's, these are real businesses. This isn't anything somebody's just doing on the weekend.
What makes for a perfect custom engagement ring? Truly understanding the elements that make a ring that's perfect for you. Custom by Colonial. The Colonial Jewelers box. There's just more in it.
Get ready, Frederick, because this is live from Studio 401, where the lights hit harder, the laughs come faster, and anything can happen the second we crack the mic. Danny and Randy are bringing the chaos, the comedy, and the kind of energy that blows the doors off Market Street. Buckle up, turn it up, and jump in. This is live from Studio 401.
That was such a big thing when I was on the partnership 20 years ago, is you were trying to get everyone to have consistent hours. And I feel like, except for, some days when people tend to be, I think it's lighter on Mondays for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just everyone needs a break in retail or restaurants too. So that is nice to have that as a community. But in general, I think the hours are like, you can come down any other day, all day long. You have options, and you can walk around and see things and eat things and drink things.
Yeah, it makes a big difference because people want to know that they can trust that destination and be there, and people will be open when they show up. So yeah, we're far better than we were before. I still get a few critiques, but we are far better than we were before.
Half people, no matter how much
Yes.
you're working, this is not enough, or there's always the naysayers in the crowd. But I think people are I think everyone locally can really appreciate downtown and what it's evolved to. I mean, before both of our times, I've heard people talking about the downtown used to not be the place to be.
Oh, yeah.
And then the place to stay away from.
Yeah.
Even in the 80s. And it's hard to wrap your head around that with how it is now.
Success today. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we talk about, we applied and were recognized as Great American Main Street, which is like the highest honor within the Main Street community. And we talked about, you have to kind of talk about how bad it was. And I think we were fortunate to have a lot of new residents. That's a good thing. But that history of in the 70s, and I wasn't even here then either, but 100 acres of downtown inundated with floodwaters. There's a famous picture basically right outside your door of people in a boat at, that's the heart of downtown, and people were boating through there. And you think about the devastation of that at that moment, but also what that carries through for a downtown. It wasn't just that it flooded that day and there's all that damage and heartbreak and, hard times for the businesses that are impacted, but what that means in terms of future investment. You don't put the money back in if it's just going to flood again. So all the investment in Carroll Creek Park, which we think of today as a beautiful place to enjoy festivals and events and just have a good time, is so critical to downtown's success and getting us out of the floodplain. And at the same time, as I think about it from a planning perspective, not only did we have a flood, we lost Montgomery Wards and JCPenney's. They moved out to the mall, and, interstates are connecting us down to DC. Downtown, the pictures from that time was boarded up.
My dad tells stories, and because he remembers that time, and talks about how they were one of the few businesses not to leave, and people were dropping like flies. They were going to the malls and the strip centers, and that was just not just because of the flood. That time in America, people were going to malls and those type of not lifestyle, but strip center type shopping, and my grandparents at the time, my dad, I don't think would have been in a deciding capacity at that
Yeah.
point. They said, well, we're staying, we're downtown. And that's the thing one of the things I'm most proud of for them is just like thought it'll come back. Let's just have faith and let's stick it out. Cause that was probably the heart beyond just the actual flood. The fact of everyone flooding out, this mass exodus of all these businesses when it used to be like it is today, where it was like the county seat, really, where everybody is. So what do you see as the future of downtown, or what do you? I know it's hard to have a crystal ball, but where do you see going?
I mean, the trend that we've been on about focusing in on downtowns, shopping local. For me personally, that's how I live my life. And I hope that we're raising a next generation who feels the same way. My kid loves to walk. She knows the people she's shopping from. We had a little brief conversation about kids earlier. She knows she can't get away with anything in downtown Frederick because pretty much everybody knows. And then they'll tell me. So I hope that we retain that as we continue to grow. As I know you well know, we've got the Visitation Hotel, which is fantastic. And then the next year, we'll start to see construction on the new Marriott, which is a whole new level of what's going to come to our downtown. And so as I look to the future, I hope that we embrace these new, amazing opportunities that are coming our way, while at the same time retaining that local feel, which I think is so special to this place. And in a time where we all feel maybe a little disconnected or maybe not all on the same page, that opportunity to connect with people from all different walks of life is just, to me, the huge power of a downtown. I meet people here I wouldn't have met otherwise. I talk with people I wouldn't have talked to otherwise. And I think that's really good for Frederick as a whole.
Yeah, that, as you're saying that kind of like mutual love of downtown. That really pulls people together no matter what else is going on in their lives or in their thinking about stuff.
Well, and it's also unique to a downtown. When we talk about malls or lifestyles, those are private places. And so people can be told to, we can remove people in a different way than you can in a public sidewalk. And so that opportunity, I think, an advantage that that's why people come here to protest, which can be good and can be frustrating at moments, but still can be, this is where we come to mourn. This is where we come to celebrate. This is where we come to do those things. And that speaks to the power of this place and our opportunity to come together here.
So true. It's just, we have a really special place here.
Yeah.
I think that, you've been just so fundamental to that. And I have so much respect for you with that. And your staff has grown. Like you said, we had one.
It was me. It was me.
Didn't you? Point. Now just how much you do and how much we just see. And it has evolved from the event time of that first Saturday.
Yeah.
So much emphasis on Preside, which was awesome to really start that tourism movement here, because we don't feel like we had that before. We didn't have people, local or not local, coming to Frederick. And now to be winning these awards that we win for the best cities, and people come. And I mean, I have customers coming from York just last week. Someone who comes down from York to shop here and loves to bring her girlfriends, and they walk around downtown, and it's a whole thing. And it's just good for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of power in this place.
Much.
Thank you.
Being my guest and for downtown. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank you too. Your family's made such an investment in downtown Frederick, right here in the heart. So I really appreciate it. And I was just talking about, Tom in 25 years. It's nothing compared to you all, which is incredibly impressive.
25 is impressive. It's like, any business is hard.
It's hard.
Business anywhere is hard. And so anybody who has that, my kids have already said they're downstairs today with municipal, and they've already said, when are we going to kids?
Yes.
Tons.
Yeah. But still, it's impressive. And this is by no means a cakewalk to run a retail store. It's an interesting thing. People will be like, why is this thing happening? And it's like, because it's hard work and it's a family affair, and things happen in families that affect a business in good ways and in bad ways. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.